Hello, hello. I'm back with Systems Synthesis, Chapter 5, entitled I'm Going to Level Up Like Crazy. Ichigo stared at the cans arranged in front of him. He focused on the orange one, imagining an invisible rope tied around its diameter. Then he grabbed onto the rope and tugged. The empty can came hurtling his way, but dropped down on the ground. The moment Ichigo grinned in surprise. A roll of paper smacked his head. Just because it moved doesn't mean you're allowed to lose focus. Wait for it to come towards you before you let it go, Inko explained. I know, Ichigo sighed. Pool might seem like an easy-to-use quirk, but no one realizes how difficult it is until the invisible rope keeps slipping from your hand just because you lose focus by blinking once. He took in a deep breath and started again. An invisible lasso wrapped around the can, tight and secure. He grabbed onto it and pulled. The can came spinning his way a little too fast, but Asuku managed to snatch it out of the air at the last moment. Okay, the next one. He took in another deep breath and repeated the process with the purple can next to it. Hook, secure, and pull. He grabbed once the purple can came hurtling his way. He heard a snicker from behind him as the juice from the half-filled can spilled all over him. But Asuka was too deep into his focus to pay any mind to it. He didn't realize the way his eyes glowed a gentle viridian hue, or the blue notification that popped up above him. Concentration is now in effect. Increase the user's concentration, allowing them to focus on every detail and memorize it. Intelligence and dexterity have gone up by 2 points for the duration of the skill. The 3 cans in front of him were all of different weights. Bolosiku had succeeded in pulling empty cans, pencils, or anything of similar weight range towards himself. Anything heavier ended up in failure. So he focused on the third and completely full can of cold coffee. Imagined the invisible lasso settling around the surface of it, securing tightly before he pulled. The can shot his way. All 500 grams of it settled perfectly in his hand. A million-watt smile lit up his face as he turned around. Inko looked at him with a soft but proud smile. Hands clutched onto her chest as she watched him. Ichigo turned further around to find Shota watching from the couch. The exhausted pro-hero's lips twitched up the tiniest bit as he gave him a thumbs up. Congratulations, your skill pull has leveled up. Pull level 2. You can now pull objects up to 0.5 times your weight towards yourself. Pull leveled up, Asuku cheered, pointing towards the notification, even though no one apart from him could see it. Oh, congratulations, sweetie, his mother smiled. What level are you at right now? Shota asked, turning around until he was laying on his back on the couch. I'm at level 15 right now, he answered, and my ranks... His lip jutted into a pout. D. Does it say how long it'll take you to level up? Itsuku looked at his profile. Not really, but something new showed up this morning. Quest, get stronger. In order to level up your skills at a higher rate and gain more stat points, you need to get stronger. Also, the higher your skill levels are, the more strain they will put on your body. Therefore, you will need to build your body to be able to endure them. Complete the given daily tasks until your body is prepared to handle stronger skills. Daily tasks. Run 10 kilometers. Completed 2.5 kilometers out of 10 kilometers. Do 50 push-ups. Completed 30 out of 50. Do 100 sit-ups. Completed 45 out of 100. Plank for a total of 15 minutes. Completed 5 minutes out of 15 minutes. Do 100 squats. Completed 40 out of 100. Ichigo narrowed his eyes at the atrocious number. It's a set of daily tasks in order to build up my body. Even your quirk thinks you're too brittle. Shota smoked, and lazily caught the can of cold coffee, Itsuku hurled his way. Itsuku! His mother chided, giving him a stern glare for throwing the can. Itsuku huffed and pouted, slumping his shoulders. Sorry. Then his mother turned to Shota and glared at him as well. The underground pro hero stopped abruptly in the middle of opening the can and blinked owlishly at her. Then he looked at Asuku and then back at her, before sighing and slumping his shoulders as well. Fine, fine. He got up and headed towards the door. Come on, problem child, I need to be an adult or whatever. Isuku muffled his giggles behind his hand, before collecting his notebook where he kept track of his quirk and getting up. Don't cause too much trouble, you two, Inko said as he walked out of the apartment and into Shota's. Yes, Mom, Shota and Asuku chimed together. Don't make fun of me, Inko deadpanned before closing the door. Shota and Asuku looked at each other. See? You upset her, problem child, Shota said, pointing fingers at him and then taking a sip of his coffee. Isuku feigned an offended gasp. Lies! Shota shook his head, ignoring his reply as he walked into his apartment. Hey, coffee, Isuku greeted the black American short hair that greeted them with a meow. The black cat with baby blue eyes looked at him before gently raising her paw. Ichigo laughed as he approached before lowering his head so the cat could pat him. He had no idea why she did it, but every now and then she would come up to him and then paw him very gently on his head a few times, meow at him before walking away. 2 pats on his head later, the cat walked along the edge of the couch before jumping onto Shota's shoulder. The raven head didn't even flinch when she landed on him. Sometimes Ichigo strove to be as unbothered as the man in front of him. Alright, what skill do you want to test next? Shota asked, downing whatever amount of coffee was left in the can before tossing it away over his shoulder. Ichigo gaped, mildly amazed as the can landed squarely into the trash can. Disassemble, Ichigo replied, blinking away from the trash can. Shota grunted in acknowledgement before plopping down on his couch, coffee jumping off his shoulder at the last moment. What does it do? I don't really know, Ichigo replied. He hadn't had the chance to look into the description of all his skills ever since he got discharged yesterday. He crashed into his bed and was out like a light the moment he entered the apartment. Ichigo opened up his skill window and clicked on Disassemble to read its description. Disassemble, level 3, allows you to disassemble any piece of machine. Huh, Ichigo huffed. It's basically what it says. I can disassemble any machine, though the time required will depend upon the complexity of the machine. I can think of so many people who would kill to have that skill, Shota mumbled as he grabbed his toaster from the island counter and placed it on the coffee table in front of Ichigo. Here, go crazy. Ichigo ignored the last comment and tipped the toaster in his hand. You sure? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ichigo placed his hand on the toaster and activated the disassemble skill. It took 3 minutes and drained a lot of his EP before the toaster was completely disassembled in front of him. He looked at Shota with a proud grin, but the pro hero only watched with an uninterested expression before nodding to himself. Now try to assemble it back. Shota laid down on the couch, picking up coffee in his arm before placing her on his chest. But I don't know how? Shota turned around, tucking coffee in the gap between him and the couch. Figure it out or I'm telling your mom you broke my toaster. What? Ichigo shrieked. It took him 2 whole hours, 10 videos, and 5 failed attempts to put the disassembled toaster back together, but it was finally done. And he blinked as a new notification popped up. Congratulations, your skill disassemble has leveled up. Disassemble level 4. Time period for disassembling has decreased by 15 seconds. You can now disassemble more complex machinery. Congratulations, you have learned a new skill. Assemble level 1. You can now use the disassembled parts of any machine to create a new machine of your choice. It also allows you to repair broken machines or build machines from scraps. Shota, Izuku yelled, rushing up to the sleeping hero to share the news. The hero grumbled. Shota, wake up! Izuku shook him, trying to gain his attention. If the house isn't burning, don't bother me. Shota mumbled. Shota, I got a new skill. At that, the hero opened his eyes and turned to look at him. What? A new skill, Itsuki repeated, pointing to the notification hovering beside him. It's called Assemble. Look, look! Shota slowly got up while Suku ran back to the toaster. He placed his hand over it and used Disassemble to break it apart. This time, however, 3 new options floated on top of the removed parts of the machine. As the new skill got activated, reassemble, toaster, new, heater, explosive. I can now create another toaster, heater, or a small-scale explosive, Izuku declared. One of those things isn't like the other. Find the imposter, Shota replied dryly, getting up from the couch. Do not make an explosive inside the apartment. Does that mean I can make one outside the apartment? Izuku asked. Shota sent him a look, much to his displeasure. Puffing, he turned his attention back to the part and chose the heater. He watched with barely hidden amazement as the parts slowly faded out, appearing like green-tinted half as they assembled themselves to create a new machine. It took Izuku 5 minutes to make the heater, along with way more EP and a little bit of HP too. Congratulations, your skill Assemble has leveled up. Assemble Level 2. You can customize the machine from a set of choices. Wow, it leveled up, Izuku mumbled. I think your quirk is sentient and biased, Shota commented, silence. Shota stared. Izuku stared back. Kid, what? I don't know for sure, Izuku rushed to explain. It's just, when I first got my quirk, I was in this weird space. Or was it a void of some sort? Anyways, that's where I interacted with the system for the first time. And it did something humane. Like I was upset and it replied to me or comforted me by playing tidbits of my memories. Shota stared. Why is it that every time something unusual happens, you're always involved? I'm not that bad, Izuku protested weakly, even though he knew his history proved to be against him. Shota only shook his head and went back to taking his nap, mumbling, I didn't have enough coffee for this shit, under his breath. Izuku awkwardly hung around for a while before deciding to continue working on his quirk and roamed around Shota's house looking for usable machines. After 3 hours and a long nap, Izuku had made 2 makeshift drones, a little robot, a mini shotgun that shot crumpled paper, and or anything similar in size, and a low-voltage taser. Shota confiscated 2 of those items, although he did look awfully proud of him. Or maybe that was just his sleep-laced mind making him see things. Izuku stared at the notification in front of him. Daily tasks. Run 10 kilometers. Completed 5 kilometers out of 10 kilometers. Do 50 push-ups. Completed 50 out of 50. Do 100 sit-ups. Completed 60 out of 100. Plank for a total of 15 minutes. Completed 10 minutes out of 15. Do 100 squats. Completed 70 out of 100. He had really tried to complete the task, but his body was aching by the time he headed to bed. And once he had showered and gotten comfortable in his bed sheets, he had decided to go through his profile once again to check how much he had progressed. It was then that he noticed a previously overlooked notification. Failure to complete daily task before midnight will result in penalty. Time left 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 54 seconds. Safe to say, Izuku was worried. He wasn't sure what kind of penalty he would receive, but he was worried nonetheless because Izuku hated failing to do something. It didn't just come from his pseudo-perfectionist nature he had adopted from Shota, but also from the fact that failing to do something at school usually meant a lot of bruises, taunts, and jeers. And if it was the teachers, then humiliation, degradation, threats to parents, to call parents, or at times indirectly, or one teacher specifically directly, asking the other students to bully him. And as much as he could bear the rest of it, he did not want them to call his parents. Both Shota and his mom were busy with their jobs. Shota had to patrol for hours at night, only to go and teach at UA in the morning, and his mother would often come home exhausted from work due to extensive quirk uses. Ichigo would rather not have his teachers call them just for them to leave work and meet them, because he wasn't competent enough. It probably won't be something too bad, right? Ichigo asked himself. His quirk may seem broken, okay, it was, but it wasn't completely outrageous. Doing the same thing over and over again won't work. Itsuku realized he had to progressively work harder and harder in order to grow. Disassembling small household machines only to assemble them or make new things won't help him with his progress. He needed to work with more complex machines for that. Pulling things of a constant weight range became ineffective after the first minute. Itsugu realized if he wanted his quirk to grow, he had to constantly work hard and be smart. Absolutely using the hard path each and every time was useless well, especially when he could have just taken a second to come up with a smarter and easier way. His quirk demanded brawn and brains in a balanced amount. I'll try to complete more tomorrow, Ishiku told himself, burying the guilt of failing to do his daily tasks in his chest and crawling underneath the blanket. I promise. He had no idea what was coming for him when the clock would strike 12. Ishiku was an anxious person. He would hide his anxiety behind his quips and snark, something he picked up from Shota and his mom when she was pissed out and stressed due to work. But in the end, anxiety bubbled inside of him. It wasn't the I'm scared of people and crowds kind, but instead it was the what if I'm not good enough kind, and the what if I missed something important kind. So that's why he found himself awake until the clock struck 12, counting the minutes and hour. As soon as the hour hand reached the number 12, he waited for the penalty to come. His mind raced to filter all probable possibilities, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened. 1 second he was staring at the clock, waiting for the penalty to start, and the next, his world went black. It was a split-second change. One moment he was inside of his room, comfortable but anxious under his blanket, and the next he found himself on cold, harsh ground, and a strong, earthy and musky scent. When he opened his eyes, he found himself staring a thick, dense canopy with sunlight filtering through the gaps between the leaves. Wait. Itsuki shot up and looked around, panicked. The scenery snapped him out of his initial panic only to send him into another fit of panic, but for a different reason. Because, am I in a freaking jungle? He looked around. Dense vegetation, towering trees, shadows, and thin streams of light, wet soil, dried rotting leaves, and, oh my god, I'm in a forest, he whispered to himself. Then the second realization hit him. It was morning, wherever he was. That meant he was either passed out on the forest floor, which he belatedly realized was very unlikely, for the entire night, or worse, he was on the other side of the goddamned planet. Slowly he got up. He was in a forest. He had a sense of mind, or at least he wasn't stupid. Forest floor and tropical forests like this. It's a tropical forest, alright. Have you seen that dense canopy? And the sparse ground vegetation aren't safe at all. And when thinking of tropical forest, he could only think of a few at that moment, and penalty quest, survive. Welcome to the Amazon, the largest rainforest on the planet, and home to a diversity of animals. Goal, survive the Amazon for the given time period. Time left, 4 hours, 59 minutes, and 50 seconds. Chiku whispered, Fires quirk my ass. All your sense is activated. He heard it. the barely audible sounds of footsteps heading his way. It was so quiet and quick, almost like a feline. Ichigo froze and gasped. I'm in a rainforest. He remembered enough from his geography classes, and his quirk unfortunately helped him piece the pieces together. He's in the rainforest. He's heard barely audible running footsteps. Something agile and fast is coming his way. It is not wrong on the ground. It's using the low branches of the trees. Sprint Level 2. Ichigo bolted just in time for a shadow to appear overhead, and something dangerous landed just behind him. He made the mistake of glancing behind and found the beast chasing after him on all fours. Yellow fur with prints, dangerous canines, and yellow eyes that glow in the shadows. It's a jaguar. I'm going to die. Penalty? This is a death sentence. The only way he was going to survive this was by a miracle, and given his streak of bad luck, that was very unlikely. Ichigo curled up on himself, trying to make himself as small as he physically could after crawling into a hole of a huge tree, and praying to whatever god was listening to him to let him stay hidden. After 20 minutes of a goose chase, Ichigo came to another demeaning realization. It wasn't just a normal jaguar chasing after him. It was a jaguar with a quirk, which is why, despite using his stealth skill and hiding himself with the bushes, the jaguar always found him, sniffing him out of his hiding spots. Ichigo was currently using multiple attacks at once, and his HP and EP were dropping at a dangerous rate. There was no way he was going to last for an hour. Forget about 3. He checked the time left. Time left 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 20 seconds. Oh, he breathed out accidentally, only to slam his mouth shut. He didn't dare to breathe for the next few seconds, using concentration and oil sense at the same time to listen for movements around him. Apart from the few songbirds and soft hissing from what he guessed was a snake, there was nothing else. Did I lose it? No. Don't be an idiot. You thought that the first time, and the jaguar dropped in front of him from the sky. He had 2 more hours left. He could either stay in. Something croaked. His night vision activated, and he spotted the bright colored golden amphibians on the wall of the bark right next to him. This quake is a fucking nightmare. He did not have poison resistance, and he did not want to know if he could get it. Dart frogs, his brain helpfully provided, their skins are coated with poison. And while most of the dart frogs aren't lethal to humans, their poison's effect is limited to paralysis and nausea. There is one specific kind, the golden dart frog, the most dangerous of its kind, capable of killing humans with its poison. Of all the dart frogs, it just had to be the one that could kill him. And Ichigo had enough small lacerations on his arms. He stopped when his lungs started to burn, and his legs felt like they were on fire. His HP was low, as was his EP. He needed to rest or he'll pass out in the middle of the forest, and then some hungry predator will find him and he will. Shutting his unwanted chain of thoughts, he found the nearest tree with low branches. He climbed up as high as he could until he could no longer reach the branches above, and settled himself against the trunk of the tree. He activated situational awareness, oil sense, and concentration at once. Using a combination of skills was something he didn't know he could do, but he was running blindly through the forest with no idea where the jaguar was, and he needed to know its position. And when people were close to dying, they come up with all kinds of ideas. Combinations of skills was one of them. While his skills didn't drain his EP while used individually, using them in combination apparently did, because mental exhaustion was a kind of exhaustion after all, and his passive skills were low levels. They didn't stay passively active for long either. He checked the time once again. Time left 2 hours, 38 minutes. minutes and 20 seconds. I am. Isuku wheezed as he dragged himself on the ground, never not completing the daily tasks again. He stared at the timer with pleading eyes as it counted down the last 5 seconds. And once they were over, darkness washed over him, and he found himself on the floor of his room. The door opened just that moment, and Chiota peeked his head in. He was still in his hero uniform, so Isuku guessed he just came back. "What are you doing on the floor?" Chiota asked with a raised eyebrow. Isuku was panting and wheezing like he was a decade-old chain smoker. He looked at Chiota with tired eyes and growled, "This quirk is a fucking nightmare." Chiota's eyes widened in shock and amusement. "Did I miss out on something hilarious?" "Ugh," Isuku whined. "Kill me." "Tempting. Too bad. I'm a hero," Chiota replied. "I don't snitch," Isuku shot back. Chiota huffed and shook his head. "I don't know what you're doing this early in the morning, but you stink. Cop will bite you if he smells you. Go take a shower." Isuku watched the man leave. Door closed, and Isuku rolled over onto his stomach and scrambled into the ground. Then he got up and stomped over to his table. Ripping a page out of his notebook, he wrote, "Die before you miss out on daily tasks," on a loose sheet of paper and stuck it onto the board on the wall in front of his table. He flinched when a notification popped up, and then another, and another, and then there was a flurry of notifications popping up, one after the other, encircling him. What? The flurry of notifications finally stopped, and Isuku could read the words on them. "Congratulations, your skill pool has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill stealth has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill sprint has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill oil sense has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill situational awareness has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill fear resistance has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill concentration has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill regeneration has leveled up. Congratulations, you have leveled up. Congratulations, you have leveled up. You have earned 5 stat points for leveling up. You have earned 5 stat points for completing penalty quest." Isuku shook his head, eyes burning from being open for too long as he read the notifications. Most of his passive skills had leveled up multiple times. Same for his sprint, stealth, and night vision. He had no idea he could earn rewards and "Open profile," he said out loud. "Name, Midoriya Isuku. Username, non-applicable. Age, 12 years, 11 months, and 29 days. Language, English, Japanese. Level, 17. Rank, D. Status, titles. Born to be a hero, legendary. He who cheated death, mythical. HP, 28 out of 450. EP, 12 out of 500. Statistics, strength, 48. Dexterity, 55. Agility, 67. Speed, 69. Charisma, 40. Intelligence, 80. Wow. A wide grin spread on his face, the change in his stats slowly settling in his body. One of the rewards included instant healing, and his fatigue was already disappearing from his body. He didn't feel stronger, but he did feel lighter on his toes. Then the realization that he survived what was essentially a death penalty settled in. It was an exhilarating feeling. He should be scared. He came closer to being eaten alive a few times. And maybe the fear resistance was messing with his common sense and survival instincts, but he couldn't deny the blissful numbness in his muscles as he stood underneath the shower. He almost died, but he didn't. He got stronger. He leveled up. He couldn't wait to level up further, maybe with less danger hanging on his neck the next time around. Fire breathing, a form of deep conscious breathing through the mouth instead of the nose. User inhales the maximum amount of oxygen within a specific breath pattern to raise their physical and mental Fire breathing was the only skill of his that was still at level 1, while the rest had leveled up. It's been 1 month since his quirk had activated, and he is yet to figure out how the specific quirk works. At first he was confused. How are there different styles of breathing? He spent days scouring through the internet and through books in the library until he finally stumbled up a 1-century-old site and a few century-old books that helped him understand. Apparently, back when quirks didn't exist, martial artists and swordsmen used different methods of breathing that helped them relax and keep calm. It was a meditation, but the breathing techniques could also be used during fights. Breathing through their mouths increased the amount of oxygen they inhaled, and once they could train themselves to maintain the optimal of air inhalation, it reduced their fatigue, allowing them to fight longer. Itsuku thought it was freaking cool. He had no idea why the practice was forgotten. He couldn't find enough information about it, and apparently his skill, fire breathing, is an advanced form of it. From what he understood, he concluded that fire breathing at lower levels was supposed to increase his strength and speed, along with his mental skills. The description also mentioned that the breathing techniques could increase his core body temperature, increasing his cold resistance skill as well. And once he could reach a higher level, he could breathe fire. The skill could probably be upgraded and be used in ways Izuku couldn't currently fathom, and he couldn't wait to learn. But boy, was it difficult. It was hard to focus on breathing, even harder to focus on breathing through his nose. He only managed it for a short period of time, but after that, he felt so relaxed, like he was floating. His mind would clear up, and stress he didn't even know he had in his body would fade away. But he felt that 2 minutes of calmness and tranquility, and he was already addicted to it. Itsuku focused on his breathing, teeth pressed together as he inhaled, abdominal muscles contracted as he breathed in as much oxygen as he could, before relaxing his muscles and letting it out. He had been so amazed to learn he could apparently breathe even more than he normally did, and after using the breathing technique a few times, he could hold his breath over a minute and a half. He has so many skills, and yet the most fun and interesting one he found was the breathing technique. Sue him. He wanted to see how it worked at full potential. Itsuku continued breathing in and out, focusing on the soft hissing sound he produced each time. After a few minutes, he realized why it was called fire breathing. He never knew he could start sweating simply from breathing. He had to stop. His lungs burned as if they were on fire. His abdominal muscles were aching, and his body felt so light he was scared he might pass out. It was early at dawn. He would go out for a run after this, but despite the ache, he wanted to continue with the process. It was just so addicting. Oi, nerd, I saw you running around the block in the morning. The fuck was that? Katsuki asked as they walked to school. Oh, training? Isiki replied. He had told Katsuki about his quirk the day after he got discharged. And maybe it was his own excitement, but his friends were gleaming at the mention of it. But Isiku didn't tell him what his quirk actually was. Apart from Shota, no one knew about the full extent of his quirk. He didn't know why, but something was stopping him from sharing it. He guessed it was because of his passive skills. Selective focus was a bit of an ambiguous skill, and Izuku had no idea when it worked or how it worked, but he guessed all the time. He moved just at the right time, avoiding injuries. It was because of the skill. He had only shown Katsuki his disassemble and assemble skill when asked. Katsuki, despite not having said it in words, thought it was cool. What for? Katsuki frowned. So that I don't have to do another one of those hell quests? To increase my endurance. Hyota says I get tired too easily. Huh. Katsuki huffed. You're still weaker than me, though. Izuku looked up and read Katsuki's profile. Name, Bakuga Katsuki. Username, non-applicable. Age, 12 years. Language, Japanese. Level, 13. Rank. C. Quirk. Explosion. B. Status. Titles. Born Fighter. B. HP 350 out of 350. EP 455 out of 525. Statistics. Strength 50. Dexterity 48. Agility 36, speed 45, charisma 40, intelligence 76. Katsuki was weaker than him in terms of stats, but his quirk was a B-level quirk with a high attack damage. It balanced out all the little gaps in between their stats. If they fought, he wasn't sure who would win. Bakugo had innate fighting and battling skills. Ichigo knew that. In terms of simple skills, Bakugo was definitely stronger, but Ichigo knew him for years. He knew how his friend ticked, and that was a major advantage for him. Maybe, Ichigo replied finally. Wait till we get into UA. Then I'm going to beat your ass. Katsuki gloated. Ichigo smoked back. We'll see about that, Katchan. Nerd, hothead, shitface, angry Pomeranian. I told you not to call me that. But you are like one though. Remember the time you were growling? Shut up, you fucking nerd. Ichigo snickered and ducked when Katsuki swung his arm to smack his head. Usually, Ichigo tried to come to class as late as possible, stepping in just before the bell rang so he could avoid a confrontation with the other students. But ever since he had gotten his quirk, he had stopped. Instead, he walked into his class with his friend. Before he refused because he didn't want Katsuki to face problems because of him, despite his friend telling him on numerous occasions that he didn't fucking care about the shit-ass opinions from weak-ass extras. Now, he didn't really care about it. It was probably because of his fear resistance skill, activating any time he felt nervous, which was during school, the entire time. He had tried to walk through the hallways, be in class without his fear resistance, but each time he tried, the anxiety, fear, and nervousness crossed into him at once, and he ended up having a panic attack, or falling at the edge of want. He hated how he had to rely on his skill to go through the day. He didn't even want to imagine how his life would have been if it weren't for it. His homeroom teacher walked in with a stack of papers in his hands. It's time to start thinking seriously about your future, the homeroom teacher barked, flapping the sheets of paper around. I would hand out these future forms, but he grinned widely. I assume you all want to be heroes? Ichigo frowned. He didn't like assumptions like that. He didn't like how they made it seem like being a hero is the only acceptable job choice. It was a toxic mindset, but he slowly and carefully raised his hand among the rest as well. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, but you know that it's against the rule to use them. You've literally never cured before. Sensei, don't lump me in with these losers, Katsuki said out loud, proudly, as if I had anything like their crappy quirks. Ichigo ignored as the class booed and complained about Kachan's proud declaration and what came next, until he heard his name being said. You're also going for UA, aren't you, Midoriya? Ichigo froze. His heartbeat probably would have skyrocketed if not for his fear resistance skill. He slowly inched his head upwards and saw his teacher looking at him with a twisted smirk and a nasty glare. He did it intentionally. He knew exactly what's going to happen next. The class broke into sneers and laughs. Several comments about his quirklessness were thrown his way, and the teacher just watched. Officially, he was quirkless until the 25th of the month. False negatives are rare, and false negatives at his age are practically unheard of. Henceforth, there was a lot of paperwork related to his quirk status updates. Given that his quirk was of unique nature, Shota and he had a long discussion before they decided upon how to describe his quirk officially. Ichigo had long before told him that he might become an underground hero, and keeping information about him as minimal as possible was advisable for him. Anyways, he was officially still considered quirkless, and henceforth, all the taunts and degradation had he had to face. Although he had kept an impassive face, the words still stung. Not because he doubted himself or his quirk, but those words by itself were hurtful. And words like useless and worthless were triggers for anxiety attacks for him. It was only his fear resistance that was keeping him together at the moment. But his skill was only at level 4, and if his thoughts got too bad, it wouldn't work. His skill would fail, and once it does, the backlash would be so much worse. Shut up, you fucking extras, Katsuki growled. Like you all losers have any room to talk. Oh, come on, at least we aren't useless and quirkless like him, one of the boys replied, grinning cruelly at him. Itsuku heard Katsuki growling and reached out to stop him, but thankfully his teacher decided to interrupt first. Although his teacher only condescendingly said, "It's alright, students, everyone likes to dream, no matter how impossible dreams are. Let's not judge one for that." His words stung, but at least the attention was off of him. Or at least for that moment it was. As soon as the class ended and Katsuki was out of the room, Itsuku found himself being ganged up on by 3 of the boys in his class. He recognized them by their quirk. In the middle stood the guy whose fist grew spikes, and the one on the left could produce steam with his hand, and the one on his right had a transmutant quirk that turned his hands into talons. The guy in the middle placed his hand on his shoulder and smiled. Itsuku could feel the pricks of the spikes tear through his uniform and dig into his skin. "You really think someone like you, a quirkless loser, can get into UA?" he asked venomously, and leaned in. "You know, as a classmate, I feel responsible to tell you how fucking impossible your dream is. You die before you even get into UA." The door opened, and Itsuku heard Katsuki's heavy footsteps enter. They stopped a few steps in. Itsuku didn't dare to look up. The boy removed his hand from his shoulder, and Itsuku saw the tips of his spikes tinted red. "If you're so keen on dying, how about some advice from your worried classmate?" he sneered. "Pray for a quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off the roof." Katsuki exploded, a loud growl tearing out of his mouth. "You fucking..." He froze, and so did the rest. Because the moment the boy finished giving his little advice, Itsuku snapped his head up. He could take the insults and sneers, but suicide baiting was crossing the goddamned line. Itsuku's never been this angry. It was ugly emotions boiling inside of his veins. His vision tinged as his eyes glowed in the shade of toxic green. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by a few degrees, just from the intense glare. "How dare you?" Itsuku hissed. "Insults, taunts, sneers, I endured all that shit. I didn't say anything back when you called me things to satisfy your fragile egos, but suicide baiting me?" He stepped even closer, crowding the boy's personal space. Even though he was shorter than the one in front of him, Itsuku still stared him down with a menacing glare, relenting from the terror in the boy's eyes. "That's crossing the fucking line, asshole." He grabbed the boy by his collar and pulled him closer. "I'm letting you go, just this once." He pushed him back and bared all his teeth in a snarl. "Say shit like that again, and I'll make you regret being born." He looked at the guy's lackeys and then back at him. "Am I understood?" Itsuku heard him gulp before nodding. With an eye roll, he picked up his bag and walked away, grabbing a very surprised-looking Katsuki by his wrist before pulling him along his side. "The fuck was that?" Katsuki asked once they stepped out of the school building. "What was what?" Itsuku asked. He didn't like being angry. It tasted bitter on his tongue. "Since when can you glare like that?" Katsuki demanded. Itsuku looked at him somewhat judgmentally. "Have you not met my dad, Kachan?" Katsuki's expression slowly changed as he considered it, and then his lips stretched into a smirk. "That was some scary-ass glare back there, you nerd." "Thanks, Kachan." Itsuku grinned. "I'm still better, though." Itsuku nodded solemnly. Sure, bitch. Itsuki snickered as he felt the tension release from his shoulders. At that moment, a notification popped up. Congratulations! You have learned a new skill. Itsuki blinked. Again? What? Katsuki asked. Itsuki ignored it for the moment as he tapped onto the view button. What again, nerd? What you doing with the air? Did you lose your mind? It's part of my quirk, Itsuki answered absentmindedly. I can see screens with information. Dominance level 1 intimidates anyone weaker than the user into submission. Huh, that'd be useful, Itsuki mumbled. He could definitely use this skill as a hero, but he'll need to grow enough for that. Which he checked his profile was doable for him. He'll just have to level up like crazy. That's the end of chapter 5. Sorry for any stumbling or mispronunciations. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye bye.